Hello, Steve White, Trek Boy 89 for Steve Arts 89. Well, this is a little bit surprising. We all know earlier this year Star Trek Prodigy was not only cancelled, but it was removed from Paramount Plus. Like, they just were like, this is costing us money just to keep it here. We're not making any money, no one's watching it, we're losing money, we have to get rid of it. And that was fairly shocking for people for a Star Trek series to have this sort of treatment. And a lot of people were freaking out, and a lot of people were doing the whole, save Star Trek Prodigy and all that. And I really wasn't bothered because as much as it was a nice Star Wars series, it was a Star Wars animated series. It wasn't Star Trek. There was nothing about it that resembled Star Trek. There was no humans in it. It was not about space exploration or Starfleet or a crew or camaraderie. It was just about a bunch of rebel kids basically running around on a starship the size of the Millennium Falcon and basically just having a Star Wars experience where they're basically running from Darth Vader, because that's what the bad guy of the series was. And the fact they had a bad guy, like, it wasn't like a Star Trek series, it was like a Star Wars series. But it was good. I mean, I enjoyed it. So I wasn't really like celebrating that it got cancelled or anything, but I wasn't surprised. But we've heard just recently, just like half an hour ago, that Netflix is actually showing this series. Now, they were doing season 1 and 2. Season 1 had been completed. Season 2 was not completed when they were cancelled. They're finishing it off, but it wasn't finished. They were still working on it. And there was some hope from people that if someone else would take up the series, they could continue producing it and they'd get a third season. Now, Netflix is going to be screening the first season soon, and then they're going to be screening the new episodes from season 2 next year. Does this mean if the first season does well and the second season does well, they'll fund a third season? Now, once upon a time, we would assume so because Netflix would just, buy anything and pay for anything, and they're just throwing money at everyone. But we're not in that golden age of streaming anymore, where they think building a streaming service is about paying for more content and just producing more and more content, which is what they were doing a few years ago, just throwing money at everything. Now they've realised they're not making any money out of that, and they're all pulling back, and all the streamers are sort of trying to get to a point of being profitable and working out how to do that, and sort of going backwards in a lot of ways. So does the fact they're screening it on Netflix mean they're going to buy the series and do a third or fourth season? I don't think so. But it's not impossible, but when you look at all the problems that they had with Discovery, when they only bought Discovery because they wanted to buy the rights to the regular Star Trek series, the real Star Trek series people actually watched, and in order to do that, they had to basically pay for Discovery, and they basically spent so much on the international rights for the other Star Trek series, the real Star Trek series, that they basically paid for Discovery's first season. And then they were promised a Star Trek series that was set in the Star Trek universe, along with the original series Next Generation, Discovery, Deep Space Nine and all those others. Gee, how can I get Discovery and Deep Space Nine confused? So they paid for that. They thought they were going to get that, but they got this alternate universe, alternate timeline, non-Star Trek, 25% different, trying to be totally different from Star Trek in every way, for legal reasons and just artistic and just reasons where people making the new Star Trek don't like the original Star Trek. They're not fans. They never watched it. That's all documented. Kurtzman never watched Next Gen, never watched the original Star Trek. He didn't like it. He didn't get it, and he just latched onto a couple of elements that he thought people would relate to and just focused on that and made that Star Trek, which was just diversity, representation, and the things that were in Star Trek built into Star Trek, but not the point of Star Trek and not the focus. So Netflix ended up with this show that wasn't Star Trek. Fans didn't like it. They weren't watching it. And it was costing them a lot of money, and they were stuck in a deal where they had to pay for, continue to pay for the show as they were producing it for Netflix. They couldn't get out of it for a couple of years. They eventually did. They had to wait out the contract a bit, otherwise they would have had to pay out, and it was easier to just continue producing the show and get maybe something out of it than cancelling it and getting nothing out of it, except, paying themselves out of the contract. And then as soon as they could get out of it, they got out of it, and they cancelled it like a couple of days before the fourth season they was supposed to air. They got rid of it and sort of sabotaged Paramount Plus was taking it on because of the way that it was some nasty business. Kurtzman kept them in that contract as long as he could. If they didn't want to be there, he promised them something and didn't give it to them. So after all that, they're going to go into producing another Star Trek show. Now it's with Nickelodeon. It's Kurtzman, but it's Nickelodeon. Maybe if the numbers are there, they'll do it. But the numbers weren't there on Paramount Plus. The numbers weren't there before. No one was watching the show. Why would they start watching it now just because it's on Netflix? I don't know. It's very curious. We'll see what happens. I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Thanks.